The bitter court battle over a book by Donald Trump's niece, Mary, continues. Earlier, I spoke with Mike Papantonio, a longtime trial attorney and host of America's Lawyer with Mike Papantonio, about this headline-grabbing legal drama. Here's that interview. Do they ever stop publication, Mike?
There are a lot of questions swirling around about the release of Mary Trump's book, and they all are going to depend on what's actually in the non-disclosure agreement that she signed 20 years ago. Mary's lawyers are arguing that the NDA is too broad in scope and it can't be enforced because of that. It's actually an argument that's made by other people who have been bound by NDAs regarding Donald Trump, and those cases were very successful. Her lawyers are claiming that the Trump children lied about their assets in order to secure the estate settlement. And if they entered into an agreement on false pretenses, then the whole thing would be considered null and void. An interesting part about this, there may be what we call, and this is a guess, but there may be what we call liquidated damages involved in this. And what that means is there doesn't have to be a showing of damages. There simply has to be a showing that the contract has been violated, and then that liquidated damage amount falls on Mary Trump. Most of the time, you'll see a publishing company like Simon & Schuster say, look, we will handle liquidated damages. We think we can make enough money on this book that we're going to go forward anyway, and any damages that ensue from there, we'll go ahead and handle that. Daniel Ellsberg is a great example. The Daniel Ellsberg case with the Pentagon Papers. Understand, those papers, they were published, and Daniel Ellsberg was, he was indicted. In the end, he was not prosecuted. So the point is this: Mary Trump is at risk. Simon & Schuster is not at risk. Just like in Daniel Ellsberg case, Ellsberg was at risk, but the publisher was not at risk because they argued First Amendment, and they also argued that this notion of prior restraint on publishing or pre-publication injunction should not be considered by the court, and they were successful. So I think the book comes out, and I think what Mary Trump is going to have to understand is there's ramifications that are going to flow after that.
All right. It's rare that a book is stopped from publication, isn't it?
It's very rare. It's a very fundamental First Amendment right. The court looks at, there may be some issues, but the first issue we're going to look at is are we willing to enjoin a publication, especially a pre-publication? And this judge has said, look, there are already thousands of these books out there. What good is it going to do anyway? I think Simon & Schuster's in good shape. I can't say that Mary Trump is in good shape because we haven't had a chance to look at what that NDA is or whether there's liquidated damages in that NDA.
So at this point, it's impossible to say who's going to win on this?
Well, I think Simon & Schuster is going to win. I think the book is going to be a bestseller. I think it's going to generate a lot of money. And the only question is who wins between the Trump family and Mary Trump. As I said, Mary Trump is saying, look, the reason this thing is null and void, the reason the NDA is null and void is because there was fraud in the disclosure of assets that the Trump family came forward with. And so that's going to be an element they're going to argue. The Trump family is going to obviously argue, you can go forward with this, but your damages are going to be substantial. She simply has to take the risk. Maybe Simon & Schuster will step in to handle the damages that might result here.
Does it make the president look good to be fighting it?
I think it's a big mistake. I think every time Trump steps up and fights something like he did with Bolton, or the publications are going to continue. Look, his base is his base. His base at 40% isn't going to change. They're going to stay there regardless of what he does. But I think people that aren't in his base say, what do you have to hide? I think it's a mistake for him to do that. He doesn't need to do it because ultimately the person seeking that publication is going to prevail. Now, Bolton has another problem. Bolton's issue comes down to there's certain steps that he has to take with the federal government to be able to release certain elements of what's contained in his book. He didn't do that. So you can't compare the Mary Trump case with what happened to Bolton.